Good morning, everybody. Happy day after Christmas. So happy to be here with you. Hi. So, let's meditate. And I don't know, I think it's nice to do the three kinds of Om. And so Om itself is spelled A-U-M, is the translation. And so the sounds, you think of the ah as being deep in your pelvis toward the tip of your tailbone, but really encompassing your whole pelvis. You want to feel this ah sound. And then there's more of an O sound, O or U, in your heart as the energy moves up. And then the third eye in the center of your head, that's the and it's got a little bit of a buzz to it, like that, almost towards a grunting. It's almost like, when we were kids and we used to put wax paper on a comb and make that sound, and it would make your whole head vibrate. Well, it's kind of like that feeling that you want to open up your head with the sound. So it's like somewhere between humming and you'll feel it and you'll hear it as we do it. So the Om sound has three parts to it: ah, oh, and. And so when we say it, the motion is from the pelvis up to the heart, up to the third eye, and out the head, out the top of the head. So we're actually activating all of our chakras with our sound and the feeling that comes from the sound. So let's do it 9 times. And you don't have to take my speed. Do whatever speed works with your breath. Okay. So you take a very deep inhale if you can through your nose, but it's that kind of time of year where we've all got the heat on and there's particulate matter in the air and we might be stuffy. So you inhale. Om, om. And now we're going to do it just with our breath. So it's like a whisper, but the same vibration. Now you just silently say the sounds into the space of your being. Now, as you take an inhale, just open your eyes a sliver to let a little bit of light in. And with each breath, open a little bit more. But keep your attention inside so you hold the space. And allow your eyes to open and be totally present from this field within yourself, so that you're holding the field as you gently open your eyes, but your attention is still on this vast space inside. And from there, whatever questions arise, we're happy to begin our program. So we'll share with you the interesting experience we've been having with Rebecca as she has interacted with relatives over the last few days. And what's been very interesting is that everyone in her life has been presenting with a calmness and what appears to be an internal sense of comfort. And it's been so surprising because there have been family gatherings that in the past have had a certain kind of intensity, tension, and discomfort. But that was all gone in the last few days. And so, and it's not just our presence that made that happen or that allowed that to happen. It was really that all the people have been doing their inner work. And so there was this sense of underlying joy that was able to be shared in the experience. And we're telling you this because as you become more aligned, the people around you begin to seek that alignment within themselves. And it has everything to do with you and nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the quality of energy that is coming through you. And when we understand that all of us in our own way, and we each are motivated by different flows of energy that come through us, but we are all capable of channeling divinity because we are all that, with capital letters, THAT, that which is the source of everything. And we all have different filters that it runs through. And what Rebecca is learning is that astrology is actually one of the most potent ways for getting to know yourself and what your own filters are in terms of how you process the energy that comes through you. And we'll relate this experience that she has had recently is that because of some confusion, and this is certainly karmic that this would happen. She had a great astrologer in 1987 and continued with him. His name was Chakrapani Ulal, and he trained most of the people who trained the people in the US from the mid 80s through about 2015 was probably when he started to do a little bit less. And then he died in 2017. Anyway, he was Rebecca's astrologer through about 2005. But somewhere in there, maybe it was shortly after that, she was in a cycle where she was in her Saturn cycle. And with the Saturn cycle in the way her chart is organized, it looked to be a very, very difficult period. But because she was doing a lot of spiritual work and living in a spiritual community, what was manifesting externally was making her really happy. And so the deeper parts of herself that she had not yet gotten to, where this deep, deep sadness was in her, was not accessible. And so that was not her life experience. So when he was telling her what was going on in her life, that was not resonating with her experience. And so she ended up, after several years of this, going to a different astrologer and having her chart rectified. And what that did is, in Vedic astrology, within a 24-hour period, the only things that really change are the rising sign and the moon. But those are like the drivers in the chart. They're the major drivers. They're where you look to see how a person is put together, how they view the world. So having those in the wrong place, and they were almost exactly opposite in this new chart to where they are in her real chart, the chart that reflects her birth time, which is actually probably within minutes of the real time, if it's not the real time itself. So anyway, there was growing confusion in her the whole last year as she studied astrology, because she came in with the understanding that the astrology chart of an intuitive person should be the entry point to understanding all of astrology and yourself, that it's a very self-reflective study. And so that was the assumption that she was carrying as she went in. And as the year went on, she started to feel more and more kind of insanity. It was like looking at the chart, like looking at your, feeling into your body, and suddenly your foot is where your ear is supposed to be. And so there was this kind of psychological dysmorphism that, you know, what was being experienced internally and what was being seen externally, as the intuition tried to match the two, it was this experience of being really delusional. This is the way we'll say it. And there are certain factors in her chart that would make her tend to be delusional. So that wasn't all unreal either. But finally, it got so frustrating that with this last eclipse came what we'll call a death and rebirth experience, where she really was mobilized internally by this energy. It's like everything turned itself upside down. And she said, this is not my chart. Like, you know, an infant who suddenly discovers that something is really, really wrong. And so it was this experience that, and she had written for her actual birth certificate, so that she got the real birth time. That had been lost, interestingly. And so that wasn't available. And so this entire year was definitely a karmic experience, because a few days ago, so she actually got that birth time, got that chart, and sat down and studied it. And now it is resolved inside of her that she has the right chart. And so it's like, when the chart's yours, it's like your skin is on right. There's no other way to say it. It's just that it's you're yourself. And what's reflected, and the reason she knew it is because when she looked at the real chart, suddenly she took a deep breath. And it's like she'd been holding her breath for a whole year. The feeling of that, oh, I can see myself. And so then several days after this real understanding came, she was reading an astrology book by a well-known astrologer who was saying, sometimes when people have Saturn in the 7th house, they bring the wrong birth time to the astrologer. They bring the wrong chart. I mean, this is a known thing, but you can only know it after the fact when you discover that Saturn's in your 7th house, because what gets mixed up is the house placements. So you know, that's what changes when you have the wrong birth time. So I know this is a lot about astrology, but it's really a lot about personal growth and about the potential for astrology being a possible way to really access your own inner and see what the drivers are in your being, so that you can understand what parts of your behavior you really want to interact with and become more refined with, and what parts of your behavior you can just accept as, okay, this is the way the drivers are, and so I can use that energy to do this. And you can begin to experience your life in a different way. So we have been telling Rebecca to explore astrology because we wanted her to make this discovery. And as painful as the experience was, it's in divine order that she will always know when she's looking at the wrong chart, because she'll get this feeling of the foot being where the ear is. or the belly being where the toe is. You know, it's just not going to make any sense. And she'll say, we have to start over and figure out what your real birth time is. And so this was not, painful as it was, an experience without long-term benefit. But this is the way life is. We attract to us the karmic challenges that need to be overcome so that we can move to the next level. And what happens is, if we don't do it, life will keep giving us the same thing over and over until we do it. And so when we experience that we feel really, really stuck, that's when we need to ask for help to see where the drivers aren't making any sense. Like, what is going to push us through that layer, or really what is going to propel us into the density of our own karma so that we can work through it and become more refined. So that was a long story, and we hope it's of some benefit to someone. But this has been and interestingly, this all happened around, it began with the lunar eclipse. With the lunar eclipse, she was able to feel that some of the, one of the most intense patterns that she's been acting out her whole life became obvious. And in that moment of seeing it, she was told to just say into her heart, Ram, 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 over and over, to redirect the energy which had previously been outward, completely inward, so that a pattern that was pathological in its expression on the outside became of great benefit in its redirection into the center of her being. And then that set the stage for this solar eclipse, where she said, this is not me. I have to discover myself in the chart. And now astrology will be accessible to her, where before, if you can't get the drivers in the right place, you can take in all the information you want, but it's not going to line up and make sense. So it's been a very interesting year in that way. But all of that was in divine harmony. And so this brings us to a different point, which is when we stop using pleasure and pain as our guide for how to direct our lives, when we stop seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, and instead engage our deepest self in self-discovery, putting our attention inside and demanding the truth of who we are, really demanding of ourselves to begin to access that truth, then something amazing can happen within us. Because this is learning to really use our energy to our own benefit. And when we use our energy to our own benefit to unite with our highest self, to really become one with that which is our potential, which is the potential of the entire human collective, when we begin to unify with that, then that is the energy that changes the world. And it begins in us. And as we do it, it magnetizes that same experience for the other people around us who begin to see and feel the changes happening within us. And so we don't even have to speak about spirituality or about anything. Really, we just need to live our deep devotion to our highest self. So that's where we are this morning. How can we serve you? Yes.
So there's a question asking you to share what is non-duality?
Oh, we're so happy you asked this, because we live in a dual world. Our whole matrix of belief is that there is the experience that happens inside us and the experience that happens outside us. And there's really no particular relationship between the two, except that that's the way life is. So that's duality. Duality always sees things as if there is a subject and an object. Non-duality is when those boundaries fall down. Really, when we begin to experience ourselves as pure energy, then there is no longer inside and outside. And you may have noticed in meditation this morning, when we went to the energetic practice, when we were just saying silently within ourselves, the Om sound in the three places, that our body might have disappeared. We might have lost our awareness of having a body. That happens when we begin to be in union with our energetic highest. We begin to experience ourselves as unbounded, which is what happens when the awareness of the body falls away. And so when you get in that non-dual experience, then, because non-dual is not a concept. It's not a concept that a linear mind can grasp. It's not a concept, it's an experience. And so when you understand that non-dual is a life experience, and it's not a state, because all states come and go. But non-dual is what we are at our core. So that's not a state. We may take a state into non-duality with us as we become more refined. As we are aiming toward refinement, we may be stuck in a state that we're going back and forth between that state and the pure non-duality. Non-duality has no state to it. So, non-duality is it just is. And so you can't label it with an emotion, because it's not an emotional state. And it's not an idea, because our mind can't wrap itself around it. Any idea, our matrix of belief has no language for something that's beyond is all we can say, because there's no language. It We said to Rebecca said to Gangaji once that state was like lettuce, that non-duality was like lettuce. Gangaji was like, lettuce? Well, maybe, but lettuce? but 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 there is that in a way flavorlessness, but there's also not really a texture either. So that's not. And the thing about it is, there is bliss that can arise. And but you see also that's not exactly a state. That is the divine letting us know that that which is beyond feels really good. And that's as it should be, because joy, love, peace, gratitude, these are all our birthright. And even when you put them together all in the same moment, that doesn't hold a candle to that which is beyond. And bliss isn't really right either, because bliss implies a disconnection from reality. And there is no disconnection from reality. There is complete connection. Non-dual is complete union with that which is beyond. And that is the human birthright. That is our evolutionary goal, to live from that. And as a human collective, when that is understood and we have union of purpose in living our lives, when our purpose becomes this union with our own divinity as a human collective, that is when the world will change. That is when the next stage of evolution will become reality. Everyone's reality. But it begins with one person choosing to dedicate their lives to that union. And each of us will, that dedication will take a different form, because each of us is put together differently. So it's, in the end, it will feel the same to every single person. Although maybe we experience non-duality differently, we don't think so, because that is union. And union just is. And maybe we will each experience it through our unique filters. But ultimately, union is beyond any filter. And it becomes unbounded. Unbounded union. And so well, we could say more about that from an astrological perspective, but we don't know if that's really interesting to you. So we'll say it anyway, since, is there another question, Brenda? Okay, so the real chart, Rebecca's real chart. The ascendant is in Pisces. Pisces is a water sign. It's the 12th house of the natural zodiac. There are 12 houses. And the 12th house is the house of endings. And the symbol for Pisces is two fish swimming in opposite directions. Looks like opposite directions. In the sky, it looks like this. And they're two fish that are like this. Now, what that is duality. These two fish in opposite directions. They're not exactly opposite, but they're not headed in the same direction. You can say that for sure. And so the Pisces people have a kind of diffuseness to their, how they express themselves in a way, because Pisces is the bridge between duality and non-dual awareness. So of course, that's where Rebecca's ascendant is. And it makes total sense now. In the previous chart, it was in the opposite house. So it made no sense. It was upside down. Made her feel like her foot was next to her ear, because Pisces is the sign of the feet. So that was a real, it was a psychological dysmorphism. The body parts were in the wrong place, literally, in understanding the chart. So it's possible that over time she would have reverse engineered the whole thing and ended up in the right place. It probably would have taken another year. But because you can see how the signs were there, but without really knowing astrology, there was no way to put it together. But she knew enough that bells were ringing, that things they weren't in the right places. So there's that. So her life purpose is sharing this bridge between the non-dual and the dual. It's as simple as that. And that could only be known for her through astrology, because we don't have another way of understanding self in our culture that can lead to that conclusion, that she knows of anyway. And when we're coming through her, we are limited to her knowledge and vocabulary. That's the filter we're coming through. And you understand, we are completely non-dual. And so we can relate to duality, but it's not our experience. And it's very difficult for us we can understand the experience. And of course, we are completely compassionate toward the experience of duality, because we, of course, live in an unbounded, non-dual state. And our mission is to share that with you, because every single human being has the capacity to live from that state, because it's what human beings are. But it is the non-dual, it is the duality of language perception that is modeled on language, rather than perception that is coming from unity. The perception is coming from duality, because we have these bodies that we are trained, we have been trained to experience our bodies as inside and outside. Now, if you watch animals, they don't have any such thing. Animals are non-dual. They know their energy. They know they're connected to God. They don't avoid death. They don't think death is bad. You know, there's certain things that they do. They stop eating because they know it's time. And at a certain point, they stop drinking because they know it's time. They live with the knowledge that they are finite beings. And when it's time to go, there's no struggle. They know that they're connected. They know that that which dies is not the real thing. What's real about any being, what's real about any being doesn't die. Animals live in that experience, so they don't fear death. You know, they have protective behaviors, but that's very different from, you know, that's territory. That's not, and there is survival in every being that lives, a survival instinct, but it's an instinct. It's not the deepest being. The deepest level of being is non-dual. And at our essence cannot be created or destroyed. It just is. How may we serve further? We're so happy to be with you today. It's really, really, we can feel the joy. Wally, so happy to see you. How are you? Brenda, can you unmute Wally? There you go.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes.
I've noticed that one of the places that I'm most likely to hold tension is in my forehead. And it's almost like my forehead is clenched unless I'm actively relaxing it, remembering to actively relax it. And I'd like to ask what that's about.
Well, so the question is, what, can you all hear the question? Okay, so we won't repeat it. When the energy, whenever the energy is stuck, you can tell that it's stuck because there's pressure. There will be pressure in that part of your energetic being. And so the way that you create flow is you hold your attention below it and you hold your attention above it. And you do that for like, you do it for some time, each one for at least 30 seconds, so that you can feel which way the energy wants to move. And so you go back and forth, sort of like 30 seconds at a time below, trying to breathe it down. And then after you've done that for some time, you take your attention above your head to the point where your fingers touch. If you make a halo around your head, you take your attention to that point and you hold your attention there and see if the energy wants to go that direction. So it's literally like you have a clogged drain. You know, we all get it, because as our energy begins to intensify and want to move, it's going to push against the restriction. And the first thing that happens when it meets that restriction is that there's some kind of kriya, like your head will go do something. And then as it gets more flow to it and it gets bigger, then you start to really feel the pressure all the time. And so what you have to do is dislodge the plug in the drain. So you work at the bottom, you go to your heart or your throat, and you pull the energy down. You just pull the energy down. And then you go to the top and you pull the energy up. And you do it with your intention. You just put your attention right smack in your heart and you breathe down. So you breathe in and down, or in and down. That's exactly right. Okay. So now that you've done that, and you can feel that a little bit of it started to move, right? Okay, now put your attention up here. Just put your attention up there. Yeah, it's above your head. You are above your head. Yeah. So hold your attention there. Hold your attention there. And you can feel it start to open up. So you just hold there and you see how much it'll open. And then you breathe into that space in the top of your head that's starting to open. Okay, and then the fear starts to come up. So we can tell you that there is no way that you can leave out the top of your head and not come back. That's not possible at this moment. That will be possible at your death, but this is not your death moment. And you will be in control in a certain way when it's your death moment. So you don't have to deal with that right now. You can just allow yourself to expand. And if you get really nervous about going out there, then you just put your hands around your belly button, which is where your cord is, and you will be able to feel your body, even with your attention outside your head. And you can just hold your hands there, reassuring yourself that you have a body as you allow yourself to expand. Now keep going. And now you allow your attention to have a little bit of force as it goes up there, because you want to move the plug out of the way. And we're holding you. So there's no way you can end up anywhere you don't mean to. So just allow yourself to put a little bit of pressure into that flow going upwards so that you move. Now you can feel the block, right? As you're trying. So breathe directly into the center of that block. So push into that block with your intention, because you want to push it out of the way. It wants to go up. You are completely safe. Allow that block to just be pushed out of the way. Say deeply into your heart, I wish to have this block removed. you ask for help. And now you breathe directly into the center of that block and allow it to release. And there you are, pure white light above your head. How beautiful. You're welcome. You can allow it to come down. It will still be there. Now you use your breath to circulate the energy. There you go. Quite beautiful. How may we serve further? Hmm. Well, we're pretty sure Wally's question got answered. So anybody else want to ask a question? Are you good, Wally?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, thought so. Okay. So beautiful. Thank you for asking. Nancy, good morning. How are you?
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes, yes,
can.
there you are.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Just went away for a week to visit family down in, happened to be in Palm Springs.
Uh-huh. How wonderful.
Yes, and my aunt is 88 and having some dementia. I haven't seen her for quite a time, so I figured it was time to go.
Mhm.
And it was wonderful. It was overwhelming as far as all the family dynamics, and just been left with a lot of sadness. And it was just, my sister went, and my sister-in-law, and gosh, there was so much going on in people's lives. My sister was in a bit of a crisis with her husband, and it just seemed like there was just all these interactions that were really quite extreme going on. And I was doing really well in the beginning. And then it just seemed to wonderful though, but really a lot. And so since I've been back, I'm just feeling so glad Christmas is over, and I'm just have a time to just allow. But a lot of tears, and my sister-in-law shared. I lost my brother over a couple of years ago, and she shared a whole lot more with me with his physical state that we never knew, and just a lot of exposure with difficult stuff. So I know this can be a sad time for people in Christmas time, with a lot of feeling a lot of loss, and have
Yeah.
friends who are living on their own and that I talk with regularly. But I really felt an extreme amount of just sadness, and since I've been back home. And so a lot of tears, a lot of breaking down, and just allowing it to move through.
Well, we sense there's a question in there, and here's how we want to respond. If you don't mind, if we say what we notice.
Please.
So you're a very porous person. I'm sure you already know that.
Yeah.
And so because of this porousness, we'll call it, which is your great gift. This is you, because you are, for the most part, in an unbounded state.
Mm.
And so that means that you feel everybody else's very, very deeply.
I do indeed, yeah.
And the only problem with that is you get confused about what's yours to actually take on,
Right.
and what's not yours to actually let go through you, because it's not yours.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And when that happens to those of us who are really porous, we get like a clogged drain.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing we were just talking about with Wally, is that
Right.
there's so much input,
Mm-hmm.
and not enough releasing.
Right.
And we also feel like this is the delusion of one who's porous. The delusion is that every difficulty that comes into our field, if we process it for the other person, somehow that's going to relieve their pain.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the delusion.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, we can't do anything with anybody else's pain that actually serves them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we dissolve all of that pain ourselves, they're just going to make more.
Correct.
Because until they understand where that pain in them is coming from and actually deal with the source of that pain,
Right.
they will be unable to grow from it themselves.
Yes.
They have no choice but to produce more.
Yeah.
And so we become the toilet, quite literally. And the first thing we have to learn to do is flush.
Right.
Because it's not ours. So just
everything that doesn't belong with me, please leave.
exactly.
Yeah.
Everything that doesn't belong to me, please leave.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where you don't even say please anymore.
Yeah, just go.
Yeah, just flush. And just, and for you, the way to do it is you breathe in through the top. You're breathing in pranic plasma. You let it go out your fingers, you let it go out your toes, and all of that shit just needs to be expelled.
Yeah.
And then the first question that comes is, well, I'm putting all this shit outside me. Who's it harming? So forget that one, because it feeds the lower dimensions. What we have, what no longer serves us, feeds what is below us. And just don't even think about it further than that. Just know that.
Yeah.
That is the truth. And you can feel the truth of it.
Yes. Yes.
So it's the way the multiverse is made.
Yeah.
What doesn't serves somebody else. And so you know,
Allow that to just,
otherwise you're just a block sewer.
right.
And then it's really, really hard to get any traction on yourself, and you just start to circle the drain, quite literally.
Yeah. Well, I must say this was more than I've ever, and that I'm used to having in my life.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wasn't able to get away enough to just let that go. But yes, I thank you. I do know that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're living it. You're
Yeah.
living it, because that stuff makes you toxic before you know it. We wouldn't be having this conversation if you were still carrying it all.
Yeah, right, right. So, well, thank you. I just been letting the tears. There's just been an awful lot of sadness. So,
Oh, yeah.
and of course with the new variant that's going on, and goodness me. But thank you. This is very true.
Well, we hope the validation is worthwhile. We see that you understand the whole process completely. And so, understand that our describing it is not just for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We all need this information.
Yes, we do.
And so we're really grateful to you for sharing your experience.
Thank you. It's just been stepped up here lately.
Yes. And that just means that you're that much stronger,
Oh,
because there's another step to it. It's not exactly as cut and dried as we said it, because when you are in the presence of someone and you are compassionate, which means that you are sharing their experience, quite literally, because you're porous. So you allow yourself to share that experience. And in that shared experience moment, they have some flow around their stuck energy in that moment. So it's in that moment that the how do we say it? You're allowing them to have the space of flow in that constriction. And so in that moment, some understanding that a different way of being might be possible. In that moment, that understanding is shared. That is the only value of being porous.
yeah. Okay.
In that moment,
Yeah.
there is shared experience. And then your job, actually, even in that moment, you can let it go.
Yeah.
It's,
Thank you.
and really, in any moment like that, we have 90 seconds to let it go. And if we hold on to it longer than 90 seconds, then it becomes our experience, and it becomes part of our karma. And it may take weeks, months,
Right.
years to release it. But we have 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And in that 90 seconds, if we don't build a bigger reaction to it, like what most people do, and this isn't just for you, this is for everybody. What most people do when they empath strong energy, strong negative energy, is that it resonates with something in them. And so in that 90 seconds, they have built a story of how they deserve that energy, or how, somehow it's theirs. In that 90 seconds, they take it in as their own, and they become it. And then that's another layer of karma. They haven't relieved the other person of any karma, because the other person's just going to make more.
Yeah.
Fill that space. But what has happened is something karmic in that person has come up to greet that energy, take it in. Oh, I deserve this. And there we are. There's another layer of density has been.
Another block. Yeah. Layer.
Yeah. So we find it's very helpful to know that you have 90 seconds.
Yes.
To flush. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually very generous.
Well,
amount.
that's the way the multiverse is, 90 seconds, but it can go really fast if your mind starts to go like this with it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Thank
So,
you.
so the thing to do is when that heavy energy comes in, you open all the channels at the same time and you let it go. You just completely let it go through you. It's not yours. It has nothing to do with you. Any resonance that starts to arise, you flush that too. So it can be a great opportunity to, flush a lot
Yeah,
in one moment.
get the flushing down. Yeah.
Yes, and that's called being in the now moment, being present. Got it?
Got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Okay. So we have time for a quick question, or we can just go to meditation. It's up to you guys. We're happy to take a question. Okay, so we're going to go back into meditation. And we're going to do the same meditation we did before to get everybody oriented back into clear space. But we're only going to do each part of the Om sound 3 times, and then we'll transmit. So take a deep breath in. Now whisper. Now silently say it as you visualize the centers. Thank you so much. This has been a really beautiful program. So happy to be with you. Wishing you a wonderful, wonderful week. Till next week. So much love. Bye for now.